Hello everyone, we're here today with Tom Van der Wiele, the founder of Hacker Minded. Hi Tom, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us about your journey into ethical hacking? What sparked your interest in this field and how did you develop your expertise?
Well, as a child, I was always fascinated by just looking at my electric toys and seeing if I can take them apart and maybe make them a little bit better, or I'll put it back together later again, which of course never happened. So I've always been fascinated by how things work and also being able to customize it and to make it my own. So if I had a little toy that made a certain noise, I wanted to change the noise. So I've always had an insatiable desire to know how things work. And if you know how things work, of course, you have a certain power over them. And I quite like that because I was able to help a lot of people and later make it into my career.
Thank you. And how do you see AI changing the landscape of cybersecurity? Are there specific areas where it has most impact, both for defenders and attackers?
Yeah, so you might have noticed that cyber attackers didn't really need AI to be able to perform their attacks. But those of them that can actually leverage AI will have, of course, an advantage versus people that are just trying to do things from the ground up. So it is a skill multiplier for people who are already doing certain crimes. They will be able to do things faster. They will be able to, for example, select their targets more thoroughly. And I would say that most of the stuff that is the most profound when it comes to the influence of AI and cyber attacks are the things that are very hard to visualize. It's really easy to make an image or have a piece of text generated, but the real advantages for cyber attackers are, for example, attacker selection, so profile selection. Who do we actually attack? So the whole analysis part can, for certain attackers, really make sure that their attacks are able to scale, which means that gives them time for other things. And what those things are, of course, we're going to have to see as time goes by.
Thank you. From your experience, what motivates cyber attackers today? Has AI shifted their goals or strategies in any way?
Well, most cyber attackers, of course, are motivated by money or anything that they can monetize. There's a certain percentage of nation-state level attacks or attacks that are being performed because of some geopolitical thing going on in the world. But most cyber attackers are just your plain old criminals that use computers to be able to monetize their efforts. So for those, of course, things have gotten a little bit easier in certain, I would say, more predictable ways. But it's mainly for the rest of us, we're going to have to see how AI is going to influence also the way that we defend our systems. Because there's certain ways that you can, for example, create information. That doesn't mean that if you take the same amount of AI budget on the defense side that we're all of a sudden going to be able to balance that scale. So when it comes to attack and defense, there's always going to be asymmetry when it comes to that. And AI is only going to make that asymmetry bigger.
Thank you. And can you tell me what are some of the most concerning cyber threats that you observed recently, and how should organizations prepare for them?
I think the category of attack that gets downplayed the most is our supply chain attacks. Because when we read about supply chain attacks playing out, there's usually a big company involved that we see, they needed this and that, and thus, we're not getting our packages. Or it's a trucking company or a shipping company, whatever. But companies need to realize, and business leaders need to realize, that they are also a supplier to someone else. And they themselves have suppliers who have suppliers who have suppliers. So it's very hard and a bit of a challenge to push your security model and your security requirements to your suppliers, knowing that they might not be doing the same thing. And the attackers, of course, know this because they will find the one weakest point where they can go from network to network, from company to company, to then eventually get to their real target. So just like a bridge that falls down, it's usually not one big event. It's a little bit of rust here, a little bit of rust there, and that's what we're seeing with these supply chain attacks. So that would definitely be my one answer.
Thank you. And lastly, for individuals interested in ethical hacking, what skills or traits are the most essential for success? Are there any common misconceptions about the field?
Lots, but I would say be useful. So it's not enough to point fingers at things and go, look, there's a hole in the wall. We can see that. how would we prevent it? What was the process that led to that vulnerability or weakness being there? So it's not enough just to point at bad stuff. You also need to be able to learn how things work. And there's this, this mantra that we throw around of, don't reinvent the wheel. Well, if you're doing things in the world of technology, reinventing the wheel is very helpful. If, of course, you know which wheels you want to reinvent. So finding out how things work and why certain people or certain organizations took certain decisions in spite of others is going to give you a wealth of information. And if you can then steer your career towards, for example, cybersecurity or maybe in the more regulatory side, you're going to have a very interesting and dynamic job because, of course, we need lots of people more in cybersecurity, but particularly we need people that know how things work. So read books, find out how things work, and focus more on the building side than the breaking and finger pointing side.